"Sir, I don't care who you claim to be. This seat is for first-class passengers only." The flight attendant's voice was sharp, laced with disdain, as she stared down the impeccably dressed black man seated in first class. Around them, passengers fidgeted in their seats, some whispering, others averting their eyes, pretending not to notice the tension. David Mercer, CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire, felt his pulse quicken. He'd flown first class for years, but today his ticket had inexplicably been downgraded. No explanation, no apology, and in just 5 minutes, Global United Airlines would pay a staggering price for that mistake. By the time the plane landed, their stock had cratered, losing $600 million in market value. News headlines screamed, "Tech mogul humiliated mid-flight, airline's catastrophic loss." But how did a single seat assignment spiral into a corporate disaster? Why would a flight attendant risk everything over a boarding pass? Buckle up. This story of prejudice, power, and payback will leave you speechless. Hey, if you can't stand bullies, racists, or injustice, you're exactly where you need to be. This story will hit deep. So smash the subscribe button, turn on notifications, hit like, and drop your city in the comments. Let's dive in. David Mercer wasn't just any CEO. He was the mastermind behind Mercer Innovations, a tech juggernaut revolutionizing artificial intelligence and renewable energy. A billionaire by 40, he'd risen from humble beginnings in a small town where he'd faced prejudice head-on. He'd learned to navigate it, to channel his anger into success. But on this fateful flight, even his hard-earned status couldn't shield him from what was coming. Exhausted from closing a $2 billion deal in Singapore, David boarded Global United Flight 214, craving the comfort of his first-class seat. He settled in, loosened his tie, and closed his eyes, ready for the 12-hour journey home. Then she appeared, the flight attendant, her badge reading Karen W. Her lips curled into a smirk as she scanned his boarding pass. "Sir, there's been a mistake. You're in economy. Please move." David blinked, certain he'd misheard. "I booked first class," he said calmly, producing his confirmation email. Karen barely glanced at it. "This seat is reserved for paying first-class passengers. Let's not make a scene." The implication hung heavy in the air, unspoken but clear. "A black man like you doesn't belong here." Passengers nearby shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. David's jaw tightened. He'd faced microaggressions before, but this was blatant. "Check again," he insisted, his voice steady but firm. Karen rolled her eyes, tapped her tablet, and doubled down. "Economy, row 32, seat E. Move, or I'll call security." Something inside David snapped. Not out of anger, but resolve. He wasn't just a passenger. He was a man who'd built an empire from nothing. He wasn't about to let this slide. "Fine," he said, gathering his belongings. As he walked to the back of the plane, squeezed into a middle seat in economy, he pulled out his phone. His first move wasn't a call to his lawyer or a complaint to customer service. Instead, he sent a single text to his CFO. Divest all company travel from Global United. Effective immediately. Mercer Innovations spent $50 million annually on corporate travel, much of it with Global United. That text alone would cost the airline dearly. But David wasn't done. He opened Twitter, his 1.2 million followers waiting. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, the weight of the moment sinking in. One tweet could change everything. He typed, "Flying Global United? Don't. Their staff just demoted me to economy because they didn't believe a black man could afford first class. Boycott Global United." He hit send. Within seconds, replies poured in. Shock, outrage, support. "That's disgusting. I'm done with Global United." Then the retweets came, including from venture capitalists, tech influencers, and even a rival airline's CEO. The hashtag number Boycott Global United began trending worldwide. By the time the plane reached cruising altitude, David's tweet had been shared 50,000 times. Back in first class, Karen, now sensing trouble, whispered to a colleague. The co-pilot, alerted to the social media firestorm, radioed corporate headquarters. "We've got a problem. David Mercer's on board, and he's not happy." Global United's PR team scrambled, their phones buzzing with notifications as the tweet spread like wildfire. The airline's stock, already shaky from recent labor disputes, began to slide. Investors, spooked by the viral backlash and David's influence, started dumping shares. In the first 30 minutes, the stock dropped 8%. By the time the plane landed, the loss would balloon to $600 million. Karen, now pale and trembling, approached David in economy, her earlier arrogance gone. "Sir, I'm so sorry. There was a mix-up. We'd like to offer you a complimentary upgrade." David looked up from his phone, where he was watching the stock ticker plummet. "Too late," he said coolly. "You made your choice." The other passengers, some now filming on their phones, murmured in agreement. One woman whispered, "Good for him. They deserve this." The airline's CEO, alerted mid-flight, called David personally, offering free flights, VIP status, anything to stop the bleeding. David listened politely, then hung up without accepting. As the plane touched down, reporters swarmed the gate. Camera flashes lit up the terminal as David stepped off, his expression calm but resolute. Karen, escorted away by airline staff, tried to apologize again, her voice barely audible. David ignored her and faced the microphones. "This isn't about me," he said, his voice steady. "It's about every person who's been judged, dismissed, or humiliated because of how they look. Today, Global United learned that prejudice comes with a cost." He walked away, leaving the airline to deal with the fallout. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Global United's stock continued to tank, closing the day down 12%. Social media erupted, with thousands pledging to boycott the airline. Rival carriers seized the moment, offering discounts to Mercer Innovations employees and publicly condemning discrimination. A week later, Global United announced sweeping changes: mandatory bias training for all staff, a $10 million diversity initiative, and a public apology from the CEO. They sent David a handwritten letter, begging for forgiveness. He tossed it in the trash without reading it. Some wounds no amount of money could heal. But the story didn't end there. David's tweet sparked a broader conversation. Activists praised his stand, while corporations, fearing similar backlash, began auditing their own practices. Mercer Innovations saw a surge in support, with its stock rising 5% as investors lauded David's leadership. He returned to his office, not as a victim, but as a catalyst for change. The $600 million loss was just the beginning, a wake-up call for an industry that had ignored systemic issues for too long. Reflecting on the ordeal, David later told a close friend, "It wasn't about the seat. It was about respect. They didn't just downgrade my ticket. They tried to downgrade my worth." His words resonated, inspiring countless others to speak out against injustice. Global United, meanwhile, struggled to recover. The financial hit was severe, but the damage to their reputation was worse. Customers canceled bookings, and employee morale plummeted as the airline became a cautionary tale. If this story moved you, hit that like button and drop a justice in the comments below. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And ask yourself, what would you do if you were David? Would you fight back or let it go? Let's keep this conversation going. Stay fierce, stay fearless, and I'll see you in the next one.